Hi everyone, today we are going to do a English section, and this is actually test Z14 from last February 2025. So this, you will note, is the quote older version of the test, meaning there are just more questions and there are no specific questions for every single question. We'll only see them for a couple. But the content is the same. So we're going to use these to our advantage. We're going to use as many old practice problems as we can, but just kind of be aware of those two things. So biggest thing, like we said, is time. Remember that the new one has 35 minutes for 50 questions. So essentially, if you have regular time, you want to time yourself for practicing doing 10 minutes. I'm sorry, that's wrong. 7 minutes for 10 questions. So that is your pace that you should be on. If you have extended time, you have a total of 52 minutes instead of 35. So you should essentially be doing a minute per question. So just kind of keeping pace. If you don't have a timer, please buy one. They're $8 or $9 on Amazon. Make sure they're silent. But I encourage you to practice that. Timing is key for the English. It is very fast paced, and we want to get to the test on test day fully prepared. So let's dive in. So, number one, raised to a height of 5'6", which had proved to be too high, the sophomore could not clear the bar. So remember, these are the ones that look the same. You read them 5 times, they all sound the same. We have to ask ourselves for this dependent clause, this incomplete phrase, who or what was raised to a height of 5'6"? It was the bar. So we need that word. Our answer is D. We need that word right after our comma because that is clarifying who or what was raised to a height of 5'6". Okay, number 2. His peers took long strides towards the bar, which rested horizontally on the notches of 2 skinny posts, and launched them off the ground. His peers. So I would say if we're going his peers, it has to be plural. So it's not H or J. And launched them off the ground doesn't sound right. So this one is going to be themselves, and launched themselves off the ground. So see if you can narrow it to 50-50 first and then pick your answer. Okay, number 3. Most dove over and landed on the mat, comma, victorious. Ooh, that's I don't love this one. So I'm going to get rid of B first. Why? I don't like and as a comma sandwich. That's gross. Remember, this is when a phrase or word is between 2 commas and you could remove it and have it make sense. Most dove over, landed on the mat, victorious. Kind of weird. So we're not going to pick that one. The other thing to think about, remember, it's not always about picking the right answer, searching for the right answer. It is about eliminating wrong answers and being confident in your punctuation rules that you can quickly go through and say, okay, it's not this one, it's not this one, it's not this one. So I am leaning towards A here because of this comma here. That's kind of weird. I don't want to add extra commas to such a short sentence. We're just trying to say most dove over and landed on the mat. That is our complete phrase. That is our independent clause. And then this is our incomplete, which we know is a standard practice for English. Just a quick review. They love to do independent clauses, comma dependent, or dependent, independent. Remember, an independent clause is a subject verb. This is a complete sentence. A subject is a noun, a person, place, or thing. So that, at its most fundamental, should be key to understanding the ACT. So if you need a little bit of a review on that, Khan Academy has some good grammar review for just basic stuff on sentences. I would encourage you to go there. So yes, 3 is A. Number 4, the high jump ruined Fosbury's chances of becoming a star high school athlete. Which choice effectively introduces the main focus of the essay? Well, it says Fosbury's victorious flop. I don't feel like I know enough information. When I have a question at the bottom or top of a page, I'm going to keep reading to get a little more clarity. When Fosbury joined his high school's track and field team in 1963, most high jumpers used to straddle the straddle techniques to clear the bar. To perform the straddle, blah, blah, blah. It's talking about his technique. He tweaked his form. So basically, it looks like he's inventing this method for clearing the high bar. So I don't know that this ruined his chances of becoming a high school star athlete. I don't think G is relevant. If we know that he later goes on to invent this technique to clear the bar, I think J is our best answer. It's also the most positive. He was determined, he saw his teammates doing it. He was determined to clear this bar, so he made up his own method. So for these, don't feel like you have to answer them in the moment. You could come back, any kind of main idea, main focus, come back to it, but definitely skip ahead and keep reading. When Fosbury joined his high school's track and field team in 1963, most high jumpers used the straddle technique to clear the bar. Let's break this one down. This looks to be a very traditional ACT sentence. When Fosbury joined his high school's track and field team in 1963. That is a dependent clause. It does not start with a subject verb. It can also not stand alone. Then we have most high jumpers use a straddle technique to clear the bar. Independent. We just said dependent and independence are separated with a comma. No change is my answer. The reason, something I want you to look at is that, remember, the period and the semicolon are the same. Okay, so we're not going to pick that one. I know this wording is a little bit different, but here it is just our go-to dependent, comma, independent. Okay, number 6. To launch or to perform the straddle, an athlete must run towards the bar at a sharp angle, then launching off the inside foot. I'm thinking G, and I'll tell you why, because I want to mirror my verbs. An athlete must run, then launch. I don't want to say run and launching, or I wouldn't say running and launch. I want them to match. I don't love the and then for G. I would prefer just then launch, but that's my only launch option. So we're going to go with G for that one. So 6 is G. Okay, 7, jumping into the air and stretching the outside leg over the bar, the athlete ducks their head and tumbles over face down head first. So a clue here, I always tell students, look at other sentences that are not questions. You can very clearly see that this is a dependent and this is an independent separated by a comma. So if I forgot that rule, skip the question, skip 5, and come back to it because there's going to be commas used correctly later on. So that is important consideration. Look elsewhere for clues. I don't know if that helps us here. That's not this type of question, but let's see. So the athlete ducks, well, A is wrong because that's the wrong there. Because it's athlete singular, I would go C. His or her head. We want to keep both singular to match the noun. So that is the secret there. Okay, number 8. The straddle felt unnatural to Fosbury, semicolon. He decided to try the less common scissor kick technique, which requires the athlete to launch off the outside foot. So I'm thinking no change because we've said a semicolon separates 2 independent clauses. This is actually 2 independent clauses. The straddle felt unnatural to Fosbury, sentence. He decided to try, blah, 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 sentence. So the reason it wouldn't be G, because that's kind of tempting, is we would need a comma, because comma, any of the fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so, would need a comma to link those 2 complete phrases, those 2 independent clauses. So they would not have given you comma, so, as well as a semicolon. They would have both been correct. Number 9. Once in the air, lifting first the inside leg and then the outside leg over the bar, keeping the torso perpendicular to the ground and allowing the athlete to land feet first. Who are we talking about? Who once in the air? It's going to be C. The jumper. Once in the air, the jumper. Who or what is in the air? The jumper lifts first the inside leg and then the outside leg over the bar. So we would go 9, C. Not too bad. 10, whether Fosbury attempted the technique but still fell short. I'm going to go J on this one. I mean, I definitely want to read it. I want to make sure it makes sense. But when you have these transition words, G is kind of weird. and you have the option to delete them, please go ahead and delete. 95% of the time, I'm making that up, but a lot of the time, you're not going to need it. So I would start with the delete on these. Okay, so we said Fosbury attempted the technique, but still fell short. Number 11, the writer wants to emphasize the effort Fosbury put into executing the scissor kick technique. Which choice best accomplishes that goal? So remember, for these, we're looking for something very specific. Emphasize the effort. So I would probably go B here. Because if he attempted jump after jump, he is doing it over and over and over again. That to me tells you're kind of putting in a lot of effort if you're, not just trying it one time and giving up. Okay, number 12. Fosbury found that if he lifted his hips after launching into the air, his head and shoulders would tilt back so that he sailed over the bar head first and chest up, almost parallel to the ground. Yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes. This is such a long sentence, and I don't see a period in sight. So this is one I definitely could see giving students trouble. I want to think about what I can ignore that's not important to my question. This is not important. Okay, so let's see if we can simplify. Fosbury found that if he lifted his hips after launching into the air, comma, his head and shoulders would tilt back so that he sailed over the bar head first and chest up. I'm leaning H on this one only because it goes back to our simplest form, the simplest way ACT is using the comma. Fosbury found that if he lifted his hips after launching into the air, so that's our actual incomplete or dependent, his head and shoulders would tilt back so that he sailed over the bar head first and chest up. So we're getting rid of that. And then this becomes independent. Guys, that's a really hard comma question. Thankfully, we won't hope not to see too many of those just because they all look so similar. So you really have to hone in on how is my sentence structured and what can I remove, what can I ignore to kind of simplify it and help my job be a little bit easier. 13. In 1968, after perfecting his unconventional technique, dubbed the Fosbury Flop, Fosbury qualified the same year for the Olympics in Mexico City. This is a really rare instance. I just want us to be aware of this, where we have two comma sandwiches back to back. Comma sandwich, comma sandwich. It's not super common. It's not part of our question, but I do want you to notice that. So we could say in 1968, Fosbury qualified, let's just go D, simplest, for the Olympics in Mexico City. So remember, when you have the word and then the word by itself, we want to choose the simplest. On the new version, this might be phrased as which one is least redundant, meaning which one is least repetitive. Okay, 14. By the time, let's read our question first because we got something going on here. The writer is considering deleting the underlined portion. Should we keep it or delete it? Remember, with these, you want to ask yourself, is it more specific? Is what you have or what you're given more specific? If so, then we do want to keep it. But by the time he had won the gold medal and broken the Olympic record with a height of 7'4", Fosbury was the fan favorite and an inspiration to a new generation of high school jumpers. I would keep it. I feel like that's pretty important. Did they give us his initial height? Yes, 5'6" at the beginning. Good. So that's something to clarify. So I would go G on this one. It does show us how much his high jump has improved as a result of his technique. So again, if it's more specific, more detailed, we do want to keep that versus deleting it. Which one concludes the essay? After his victory in Mexico City, Fosbury never again qualified for the Olympics. That really doesn't feel like a ending on a high note. This whole thing is about how this high school athlete came up with his own technique and went to the Olympics. He won a gold medal. Like, that's pretty cool. I'm not going to end on such a sad, depressing note. This has nothing to do with it. I would do a B. Because it's progressing forward. It's looking forward. It's talking about the Fosbury Flop, which was like the title of our little passage here. So remember, for these, don't feel bad going back and reading your intro and title to see which one is going to bring it full circle. Okay. One passage done. Great job, everyone. That one wasn't too boring. Okay, here we go. 16. With an audience of hundreds chanting enthusiastically, flamenco, flamenco dancer Mercedes Ruiz switches her ruffled red dress over the Villa Marta theater stage. You've heard me say this before. When we have someone's title or profession or ethnicity or nationality, there are no commas to be found. My answer is F. We're not even going to play around with this because this is her job. This is her name. We don't want to do a comma sandwich for names. So no comma sandwich for names. No commas at all. Please, this is 100% of the time. Please take this with you. You will get these right. There's at least 1 or 2 per test. 17. Meanwhile, guitarists strum flurries of bright notes. Then musicians seated nearby begin punctuated clapping to the music. I'm going to ignore meanwhile. Guitar strum flurries of bright notes. Let's go see. Because we have 2 independent clauses. Guitarist strum flurries of bright notes. Independent. Musicians seated nearby begin punctuated independent. We are using a comma and, which remember is the same as a period, which is the same as a semicolon. Good. 18. Captivated by the show, cheering is prompted as Ruiz spins. Cheering is prompted. This one's kind of weird because honestly, like, F is the shortest, but you would never say, like, you're at an event, an athletic event, whatever, sporting event, and they're like, the cheering is prompted by the crowd. No, you would say, like, the crowd cheers. So this is passive voice. This is kind of a weird question. We want to go with J, which is active voice. When you have your noun actually doing the verb versus the other way around. So again, if active versus passive feels a little bit weird, those questions aren't super common, but Khan Academy, or just you could literally Google practice active passive voice would be a good stop. Okay, she offers beguiling smiles, seamlessly transitions between movements that are each interesting and unique. She offers beguiling, doesn't matter what that means, don't let that throw you. Seamlessly, then I think C for this one. She offers smiles and seamlessly transitions. So right away, I knew it needed to be transition, so I could get rid of B. D is weird. I don't need a period there. And then C just sounded a little bit better because it didn't clearly divide it into an independent and dependent clause. At this point, the writer wants to emphasize the range of movements Ruiz makes while dancing. Which choice does this? So which of these phrases indicates the range? I would go G. It's the most specific. It also, we have ranges. We have dances that are sharp and forceful, and those that are flowing and graceful. So you're getting kind of a variety of moves there. So don't forget to read this. This is the key to getting these right, is to specifically answering that question. 21, D. Let's not waste too much time. Remember, we have the word by itself. Especially with these transition words, don't force yourself to add them. Not at all. The art form first blossomed, blah, blah, blah. So don't get caught up on those. Okay, the art form first blossomed between Spain's Andalusian population in the 18th century. I wouldn't say between because that would indicate 2 things and they only list 1. I would go G because it's happening among the population or in the population. First blossomed among, yes. So within, they wouldn't have given you in as well as among, but in the population itself. Okay. 23, all are accurate. Which one clearly provides information about the origins? Where did flamenco start? It has inspired a wide variety of dance costumes. Okay, that doesn't tell me where it started. Ah, D, done. Easy peasy. It evolved or it draws from Arab, Indian, and Jewish influences. Okay, 24. The form in its many interpretations ranges in the light, humorous Chico style to the serious John Doe style. We got a lot going on here. We got 2 questions in 1 sentence. Let's review our its though. Remember, this is it is. This is singular possessive. And this does not exist in the English language. Please do not pick that one. So right away, it's not J, never ever. The form in it is many interpretations. No, it's F because the form is singular, so you know it's not going to be there either. So speak those out. It is, it is. Is it, it is. If not, pick the other one. The form in its many interpretations ranges I would go B. If I'm ranging from something, I'm going from something to something else. From is our answer there. Okay, good. Let's see here, 26. So at this point, the writer is considering dividing the paragraph into two. Should the writer begin or not begin a new paragraph here and why? I always like to look at the length of the paragraph, like relative to where I am. So it's saying, should I start a new paragraph here? Honestly, probably, because this is my other paragraph, and then this would be the length of the new one. It feels lengthwise why that might be a good option, but let's look at content. I think so, because then we're talking about the three basic elements. Like we're kind of diving a little more deep into what the dance is about. So I would go begin. Yep, F, because we're starting the three basic elements. We're kind of doing a deep dive into more about the dance itself. Okay, 27. The dancer who conveys the mood with never-ending arm maneuvers and with brushing and striking footsteps. Shortest, D, no big deal there. Don't trick yourself on those. Do get to the point, pick the shortest. The dancer conveys the mood with never-ending arm maneuvers. That sounds exhausting. So I would probably go continuous. Just because we're not ever never ending, we're just doing it continuously for a set amount of time. 29. Additional performers called poemistas participate through a form of clapping called poemas. Their sounds enhancing quiet or exciting moments. So if we're talking about performers, we do need to keep this plural. So I would go A. So for these, you want to match your noun. If it's singular, plan accordingly. If it's plural, in this case, we wanted to match there. That was our only plural option. Okay, last one. Suppose the writer's primary purpose had been to offer a biographical overview of a successful dancer. Would this essay accomplish that purpose? We have to go back to our intro and our title. This was about flamenco flair, and it's talking about Mercedes Ruiz, her footwork, talks about her performance. I feel like yes. No, it's no. Sorry, I got caught up. This one's a little tricky because it's not a biographical overview. It's really just highlighting like a few of her dances that demonstrate flamenco. It's not, she was born on May 2nd. It's not giving us like start to finish. So I'm leaning no. Yeah, we're describing flamenco using her as an example and a reference. Okay, 31. Charles Cushman's Kodachrome America. Not sure what this is about. On September 3rd, 1938, he traveled up the Pacific coast. Hobbyist photographer Charles Cushman loaded his first roll of Kodachrome color film into his 35mm camera. I would go C for 31 because we kind of start our subject here. Like, this is our subject, hobbyist photographer Charles Cushman. Loaded is our verb, so kind of everything before that is extra. So it is going to be C. While traveling up the coast, he did this. And look at 32. Look at what it is. It's his job. It's his profession. Am I going to have any commas? I am not. It's F. We're moving on. Every time. We got those. Okay, 33. Though color film for cameras was introduced in the mid-30s, for decades afterwards, most photographers continued to work in black and white. We're going to go A. This one would have tripped me up on the test because I would have gone with D because I said, oh, color by itself. However, I would want to read this. Color film for cameras was introduced in the mid-30s. For decades afterwards, most photographers continued to work in black and white. That is now two independent clauses. If I got rid of that, I have a comma. That cannot work. We did not change our comma. We just kept it the same. So therefore, we know this has to be dependent. So I'm going to keep it, though. A little bit tricky on that one. Be careful of those. But capturing street scenes, buildings, and landscapes in vivid color became Cushman's passion. Let's keep it no change because I need to clarify. If I just put his, who am I talking about? We haven't mentioned Cushman in this sentence, so we want to be specific. Be specific on these. From 1938 to 1969, he traveled up and down again and again, driving over 500,000 miles to take thousands of photographs with color film. It's not A. That's way too repetitive. It's not B. I would go C. He crisscrossed the country. That kind of gives us a specific image of what he's doing. If I made passes, that's a little unclear. So C is specific while still being short. 36. The writer's considering adding the following sentence to this paragraph. So are we going to add it right here? Color film was expensive, and many prominent photographers of the day argued that color in photographs was distracting, even silly. Can you imagine? We have to ask ourselves, does this sentence link this sentence and this sentence? No, it doesn't. Oh my goodness, I wrote this one totally wrong. This is my mistake. That was another type of question. They want to know where in this entire paragraph, not point 36, are we going? Okay, so we don't have the choice. After sentence 1, 2, 4, or 5. I'm going to go after 4 because that's where it said, though color film was introduced for decades afterwards, most photographers continued to work in black and white. And this explains the why. So I would go after 4, H for 36. Make sure you read the question right. I did not, so that was on me. But for those, you really have to pay attention to context and flow and like sequentially which one's coming next. A body? What? Cushman's documentary style shots vibrantly show Depression-era Americans transition to an age of industrial development. I don't think it's A. I know that's the shortest, but like a body, I don't think they're talking about that. It would be his body of work, right? His collection of photographs as a whole. B and C are doing the most. We don't need those. As a body of work, Cushman's documentary style shots vibrantly show. Okay, so here we go. Shots is our subject. Show is our verb. Remember, if you have an S here, you don't have an S. It's 38 is F, no change. It's weird versus if I had said shot shows, where this is singular and this is plural. So just keep them the opposite. They should not match each other. 39. Given that all are accurate, which one most strongly emphasizes that the 1930s photo is an example of Cushman capturing America during a time of transition? Okay, let's go read this one. 1930s photo taken near an Indiana farm depicts a gleaming black and yellow locomotive heading one way, not a scratch visible on its surface. So we're capturing America during a time of transition. So if I have a train headed one way, the opposite of that would be B, right? It's this transition where you have literal steam engines and trains traversing the country, and then you have someone with their horse and carriage or cart, like, which is just kind of a crazy image. Like if we saw horses walking down the street next to our car, that would be strange. Okay. 40, which choice makes clear that the clothing of 2 of the 4 girls is being described in the sentence? In 1949, 4 young Chicago girls, one wearing a red and white gingham dress and then wrapped in a blue shawl, line up to buy confections out of a rusty green cart. Makes clear that the clothing... Okay, so at first glance, I would delete this one because I'd be like, well, it's the shortest. Let's get rid of it. But they're asking something very specific. I'd go H. Also, no, it's G. Sorry, it's G. Because you're trying to describe 2 girls. One is wearing a red and white gingham dress, like checkerboard, and another wrapped in a blue shawl because you're describing 2 of the outfits. So pay attention to those. That's an easy miss because we're just moving too quick. I'm going to ignore this comma sandwich. Okay. 4 young Chicago girls line up to buy confections out of a rusty green cart. Confections, candy. We're going no change here. This is back to our simple subject verb because girls has an S, line doesn't, versus if I had a singular girl, it would be girl lines. So please note the difference and know the difference between your subject and verb agreement. Ugh, 42 is kind of gross. They're not even giving us the option to take it out. So let's read. So meanwhile, his 14,500 color images in a dozen of his notebooks that include annotation for each are archived and celebrated at his alma mater. We need to read this as well. Cushman never sought either to display or to be recognized for his work during his lifetime. But now, I go J, I think. Yep. Because it's saying he didn't seek recognition. But now his notebooks, his images are archived and celebrated at his alma mater, Indiana University. So kind of implying what had happened, but currently, this is kind of my clue that we're focusing on current day, what's going on. I'm going to erase this because I want to see what's happening with all this. So remember, parentheses are used just like comma sandwiches, which are used just like two dashes. They serve as extra info that can be removed. So we want to think about what can be removed, what should be grouped together. But now his color images, I think B, because this whole thing needs to be grouped together. A dozen of his notebooks, like it's his images, but it's also his notebooks, are archived. And so that would make sense to have this be pulled out because you could read the sentence without it. So really thinking about what needs to be grouped together. 44. This point, the writer is considering adding the following true sentence. So this is the one I was trying to do earlier, linking those two. So we have to ask ourselves, does this sentence link this sentence and this sentence? I would say absolutely not, because like, what are we talking about? The Buena Vista Inn? Or it's not mentioned again at all. So we're gonna go no. H. Yeah. Don't overthink those. Like, it's not talked about again. So let's not throw it in there. An unreachable past feels eerily close when Cushman reminds us that the sky on a clear autumn day has always been blue, even during the Depression. So on a clear autumn day, I think it's B. So remember, if it had said crisp, clear autumn day, that's when we would add that second or that first comma to separate two descriptions. But because autumn day is our subject, this is our one description, we need no commas. So again, don't over add commas if you're on the fence, leave them out. Okay, next passage. Here we go. We got two more. Keys for community. If the writer were to delete the interlaid portion, the sentence would lose details that what? There, a woman without sheet music or traditional concert attire played on an old piano. So this tells us like what's missing. She's playing a piano, not dressed up. They're in the crowd. She doesn't have any music in front of her. I would go H. It wasn't planned. She didn't have sheet music. She wasn't dressed for it. She literally just sat down at a piano in public and started playing. What I thought must be coming from a store for its speakers, but it was actually drifting from the city square. B, 47. If we're choosing D or C, see how we have a subject, verb, but we're left with commas? Can't do that. So we want to make sure that we are, in this case, just leave it. Leave it as is. Remember I said no commas. It's usually better. 48. For the sake of logic and cohesion, sentence 3 should be placed where? I'm going to go after 1, H. And the reason is we want to build our story. Jostling with the crowds on a busy morning, I hardly expected to hear the delicate notes of a piano being played. Okay. What I thought must be coming from a speaker was actually drifting from the city square. There. This is our clue. This is talking about the city square. So that's why there has to come after city square. So always be building off the sentence before. Start broad. Think of you telling a story. From London and Sydney to Los Angeles and Cincinnati, semicolon, out, yikes. From London and Sydney to Los Angeles and Cincinnati, street pianos are filling cities like mine with music. Guys, this is our traditional independent dependent. So I would probably put a comma after Cincinnati. There's only one option for that, D. So this is our dependent, comma, independent. Nothing crazy. Just be able to distinguish where your subject starts. Street pianos are filling cities like mine. Oh, we're already there. Street pianos are filling cities like mine with music. I think no change. Because they're saying the same thing. This would be another one probably. Which one is least repetitive? They're saying the exact same thing. Why do I need all the extra words when cities like mine works? 51. Secondhand pianos strategically placed in sites with high pedestrian traffic encourage people to stop a moment and interact with others. So I'm going to get rid of my semicolon because secondhand pianos is not a sentence. Remember that we said dashes in pairs serve as interjections, which is the same as a comma sandwich. If we have it singular, it's extra info. Same as a colon. Both which require, like, I need a complete sentence. Well, for this one I do. But I don't see another dash. If this were a dash, then yes, that would be my answer. I'm done. But I noticed that this is a comma, therefore I need to do this one as a comma because it's a comma sandwich. So you wouldn't have a dash comma or a comma dash. You would have two dashes or two commas. So just be consistent with that and look for the other punctuation mark and fill in accordingly. So B. Secondhand pianos strategically placed in sites with high pedestrian traffic. So sight, like to see. I sighted a ship. I have sight. I can see, right? Site is a location. So strategically placed to sites or at sites. It would be J, at sites. So make sure, what are those called? Homophones, homonym, something weird. Make sure you can distinguish between those. Often, Jerem has learned a song is all the spark people need to greet longtime neighbors or find new friends. Let's ignore often, that's helping. How would we start a sentence? Jerem has learned, done, no change. Again, we're not overcomplicating those. We're thinking if I were just telling a story, if I were just reading this to my friend, what am I going to say? And I'm just going to start it with my subject verb. The song is all the spark people need to greet longtime neighbors or find new friends. 54F. Same thing. Don't complicate those. Don't choose the wordy one. Choose the simplest one. It's okay to have two of the same back-to-back. If you get like 3 or 4 of the same back-to-back, I would probably reevaluate, but this is fine to be the same back. Given rising costs of maintenance, making piano owners likely to throw their old instruments away rather than have them repaired for sale or donation. D, 55D, because given rising cost of maintenance, dependent, comma, we know this needs to be an independent, and we've said that piano owners, subject verb, independent start with subject verb. That's how you can feel good with that one. Okay, 46. Which choice best returns the essay to the point of view presented in the first paragraph? Easy to spot a street piano can also reveal the gifted musicians in our midst. Probably G. I would want you guys to go back, but remember it's talking first person, like she stumbles onto the city square, she hears music, she's surprised by what's going on. So yeah, for listeners like me, a street, you're just reverting back to that first paragraph. She was brought to a halt by her now plentiful audience and its fervent cheers, mine loudest among them. Plentiful audience. So something plentiful is a lot. Something bountiful is a lot. Spacious. These all on their surface kind of mean the same thing. But if you're talking about an audience size, it's going to be sizable. The sizable crowd. You wouldn't say the plentiful crowd. You would be like, there's plenty of food for, the student athletes. You wouldn't say there's sizable food. So plentiful would be amount of something versus if we're talking about people, it'd be like sizable. 58. Now the next player took the bench, and the two of us chatted about music, the city, and ourselves. Then, as the next player took the... It's as. As the next player took the bench, the two of us chatted about music. Yeah, sorry. I would probably get rid of that one. As the next player took the bench, the two of us chatted about music. Okay. Which choice best concludes a sentence in the essay by referring to Jerem's main purpose in founding the street piano project? Ooh. Main purpose. We gotta look back. They offer a second chance to pianos. Founded by Luke Jerem. Promote interaction among city dwellers. I'm gonna go A here. That was not my first thought. We had to go back and find where they talked about Jerem creating this project because he's saying it's to promote connection. A is the one about connection. You listen to someone playing music, you have someone standing next to you, and you strike up a conversation because you're like, oh my gosh, I love this song, or wow, this person's really talented. So that's what he was going for with the project. So for this one, it's essential to go back and read and scan for the purpose. Last one. Suppose the writer's primary purpose has been to evaluate a particular musician's technique. Would this essay accomplish that? No. Right away, it's no, because we're talking about a piano project, like a street piano project. Ah, H, done. Yeah. So if you can kind of come to those questions with an answer already in mind, that will help. Yet again, I would strongly suggest going back to the intro and the conclusion, intro, title, and conclusion if needed to get a better big picture of the passage. Last one, we're almost there. These old ones are long for sure. We're grateful for the new 50 question link. In 1963, the year Shiv Kumar, an astronomer studying stars of very low mass, theorized that the process that form stars could also create a new class. Holy smokes, that is a long sentence. Let's see if we can break it up. I'm going to ignore, I don't think it's A. I'm going to ignore this. It's C. Let's think about why here. It's so wordy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. So I would get rid of A and B because they're so wordy. C and D would be what I would be left with. And then I think about, well, number one, I don't want to use his name as a comma sandwich. I just want to start with my subject. So we would say Shiv Kumar, comma, an astronomer studying stars of very low mass. This is your comma sandwich. So this is your subject. This is your verb. Shiv Kumar theorized. This one's kind of like that one I saw earlier. It's a very wordy sentence. So you have to think about what you can eliminate, what is not important to help simplify and better pick your subject and verb. These, quote, brown dwarfs, as astronomer Jill Tarter later termed them, raise essential ponderings about how matter in the universe evolved. Well, looky, 62, we have astronomer Jill Tarter. We know it's not G. We know it's not H. It's F or J. And then looky here, we have a comma here, a comma here. That's my comma sandwich. These brown dwarfs raised whatever. So we are going to go no change on that one. This is a 2 and 1. Lucky us. It's a comma question and it's like our name profession question. This comma right here is my clue that I needed something earlier on to start the comma sandwich. Okay, these brown dwarfs raised key questions about how matter in the universe evolves. It's not B or D. Essential ponderings. Remember, you want to the point, proper, but simple. So don't overthink those. Just think, okay, which one is the most basic that's not too casual? 64, more massive than Jupiter. Brown dwarfs are not massive enough to fuel the fusion reactions that make stars brightly shine. Ooh, I'm between F or G because I know that we're talking about brown dwarfs are more massive than Jupiter. Oh, you know what? Hold on. This is what I get for not reading the full sentence. Look at this. This whole thing. Gross. More massive than Jupiter. Brown dwarfs are not massive enough to fuel the fusion reactions that make stars brightly shine. Brown dwarfs are too dim to be observed from telescopes due to their lack of brightness. Yikes. These long questions are killing us. This is our sentence. This is our independent clause. So everything before that is dependent. So it's actually J, more massive than Jupiter, but not massive enough to fuel the reactions that make stars brightly shine. Done. Brown dwarfs are too dim to be observed through telescopes due to their lack of brightness. I'm going to go A for 65. Sorry, D, delete. I'm on a roll here. If it's too dim, if something is dim, it's because it isn't bright. So that actually helps me feel a little bit better about J, that the sentence is not as long, but this whole thing was dependent. So reminder to ourselves, including me, read the full sentence. 66. Astronomers had to rely on advanced ways of finding these delusive orbs. Which choice best emphasizes that astronomers had no existing methods that would allow them to detect brown dwarfs? Probably G. They had to devise more sophisticated. If I'm devising something, I'm creating it. So they had to devise a plan, right? Astronomers had to devise more sophisticated ways. They had to create it. Of finding these, I don't know what the word delusive means. It's going to be C, elusive. These are probably the two you'll see more. So elusive is like to elude or evade, avoid. Elusive would be like referencing something. Allusion to, and alluded to. English is weird, man. But yeah, 67C. Okay, 68. Ooh, we don't have the choice to delete. So remember for these, you got to read the sentence before. White-brown dwarves initiate fusion. They cannot sustain the constant fusion that starts to burn at high temperatures. Still, brown dwarfs lose their heat, cooling over time to temperatures between those of planets and those of stars. I would go J here because it's the opposite. While brown dwarfs initiate fusion, they can't sustain the constant fusion of stars. Instead, they lose their heat. So like our star is constantly having all these reactions that keep it burning. Brown dwarfs do not have that opportunity. Okay, 69. A infrared telescope can detect heat signatures in this range, thus helping astronomers home in on potential brown dwarfs. I think range makes sense. This range, right? The temperatures between those of planets and those of stars, that's the range they're talking about. Okay, 5 more. It follows from the fact that brown dwarfs cannot sustain these reactions, though most never deplete their lithium supply. So most never deplete their lithium supply is an independent clause. It's not F because that makes that independent. I would probably go because brown dwarfs cannot sustain these reactions, most never deplete. Yeah, that's right. Sorry. So that would make, because that would make that a dependent, and then we kept our comma independent. An object spectrum can show which elements lithium tacked on remain present. Ooh, B? That is such a weird sentence. Lithium included. An object spectrum can show which elements, lithium included, remain present. So don't take that part out. That was kind of confusing to me, even though that's part of my question. An object spectrum can show which elements remain present. Done. And then you kind of have lithium included as like that extra detail. If the writer were to delete the underlined portion, the paragraph would lose a detail that would. So we are a culmination of 3 decades of research and collaboration. They're saying this existence of brown dwarfs was confirmed because of 3 decades of research and collaboration, which sounds like a lot of time and energy and work. Probably F, but let's see. Yeah, I would go F, just because it's indicating how important it was, how much effort and time went into it. Last page. Okay, 73. My brain's tired at this point, right? We've done so much. Stick with it. This one's not that bad. What we notice though right away is the words are the same. So I'm going to get rid of, I don't know. Let's read it. Let's start there. Some brown dwarfs have planet-like weather patterns. Clouds made of sand swirl in their atmospheres, bringing rain of liquid iron. Yikes, that sounds horrible. I don't think it's A because I don't like the dashes. I don't think I could pull it out and have it still make sense. I'm going to ignore this. Some brown dwarfs have planet-like weather patterns. Clouds made of sand swirl in their atmospheres. It's not B because that semicolon's wrong. Some brown dwarfs have planet-like weather patterns. Oh, I think it's C. We haven't really seen a colon this entire test. Let's review. Colon is extra info or an explanation. You must have an independent clause beforehand. Wow, that's terrible handwriting. Okay. Some brown dwarfs have planet-like weather patterns. Sentence. Then we're explaining those weather patterns. Clouds made of sand swirl in their atmospheres, bringing rain of liquid iron. So that is explaining those weird things. Yes, C is our answer. That one would have tricked me a little bit because it's, again, our brains are tired on 73. Paragraph and the essay. I want to go H because honestly it sounds the most conclusion-y. It's not scientific at all. We want to go back more than meets the eye. Then it's talking about brown dwarfs. You can't really see them because they don't have the reaction to make them brightly shine. That's not the point. That's a totally different subject. Like, that's not, it just feels like big picture. But again, please go back to read your intro title and conclusion for these. Last question. The writer wants to add the following sentence to the essay. Locating these objects, however, proved difficult. Okay, that's our clue. Locating these objects. Which objects? We've got to go back and look. Point A, B, C, or D. Not A. That's at the very beginning. Not B. Oh, I missed C. Hold on. I want to say C, maybe? No, B. Hold on. So I think it's B because they're like hypothesizing about them, but then it talks about why they could not see them. So 75 is B. That one's kind of tricky. I was tempted to put C. But it's saying locating these objects, meaning the brown dwarf that those scientists in paragraph 1 had talked about. Okay, guys, great job. That was a lot. I feel like there's a lot of information in there too. You did awesome. I hope you found this helpful. Enjoy.